Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys checking today's video out and spending some time with me, because we're going to be talking about how to fish a jerkbait better than anybody you know, any one of your buddies. And I think after you get done listening to this video that your jerkbait game is going to be up to the next level, because this is Jerkbait Central, man. This is, everybody that watches the channel, you guys know how much I love fishing jerkbaits and being with megabass for so long. And we are right in the middle of jerkbait season at the time of this video, so very appropriate to get you guys some good information on that. Also, before we get started, guys, I'd just like to invite everybody out there to please consider hitting that subscribe button here to Intuitive Angling. It's free and easy. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. We've had some pretty decent channel growth over the past couple months, so I'd like to invite you to do that, as well as if you want to go to the next level, you can become a channel member of Intuitive Angling here. And if you're a member, you get private videos every week that aren't seen by the public, and some access to my email address for your fishing questions. So you can just go to my homepage and hit the little join button for information there. So I really appreciate that. Okay, all you regulars, guys, you hear me talking about jerkbaits a lot, and we're going to talk about them a lot. It's the time of year you want to do it, because you can never have enough information on it. All you guys that watch my videos on the jerkbaits, I've covered a lot of stuff on it. But what I wanted to do in today's video was I wanted to touch upon some of the most important elements in terms of, allowing you to be better than anyone else fishing it, that a lot of people may or may not know, or, overlook, or don't think they're quite as important. So sort of get into the whole framework here. Now, first of all, I think one of the most important things, and a lot of you guys that have watched my channel, you may have heard some of this before, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in this video. But one of the most important things in order to fish a jerkbait better than anybody else, you got to have the right equipment for it. And everybody that watches my channels, you know that I use nothing but a spinning rod with a jerkbait. Now, I want to reiterate how important this is, because a lot of people, they think it's like, oh, that's just what Randy prefers, a jerkbait, but I'm fine with my bait cast rod. No, you're not, guys. I'm telling you right now, if you're one of those dudes that are hardcore and you got your heels dug in and you're just going to use your bait cast rod for your jerkbait, it is costing you fish, man. I'm telling you right now, you are not catching as many fish with your bait caster as you would with a spinning rod. And the reason for that, there's a lot of different reasons. Number one, you can get better action on a jerkbait with a spinning rod, simply because you have better feel, the way the rod's designed, the way the reel and rod is positioned in your hand in terms of your wrist. You can generate more variations of wrist movement with a jerkbait with a spinning rod by far than you can with a bait caster, and you also have better feel with that. And one of the things about wintertime bass fishing, since you're fishing your jerkbaits pretty slow most of the time, it's really a lot about that feel, especially when you get that jerkbait down deep. And in terms of feeling that jerkbait and manipulating subtle action on the jerkbait, you can't do it with a bait caster. I can promise you guys, if you go fishing with me, you will change. It's like, number one, you'll get waxed not using a spinning rod, simply because of what I'm getting ready to tell you here. And just try to stay open-minded about it, because everyone that fishes with me, all my buddies, I've got them switched over. All the dudes the guys that go on underwater lessons with me get switched over. So that's the first thing, is you can get better action on it. The second with it is you can make a longer cast with a spinning reel, simply because jerkbaits cast like they're not the best lure to cast into the wind or against the wind, or sideways to the wind. And a spinning rod will allow you to make longer casts in a variety of different wind conditions, which is important, because a long cast will help you attain the depth, which is critical on jerkbaits in the wintertime to get that bait at the deepest point. And you can use lighter line. It's like, I use 4 to 6 pound test Seagarn Bezix line most of the time with my jerkbait fishing in the wintertime. You can't use that with a bait caster. I mean, most guys that use a bait cast outfit with a jerkbait, they're using like the megabass 110+1 with 10 or 12 pound line. That is a very limiting setup, because you can't effectively use the smaller jerkbaits, and you can't get the bigger jerkbaits down as much, with those heavier lines. You also got to have the right rod action. with that spinning rod, I use that megabass whip snake, and I consider it a medium action spinning rod. You don't want a spinning rod that has too stiff of a tip, and you also don't want a spinning rod that's over 7 feet long. You need to keep that spinning rod under 7 feet, because once you get 7 foot on a spinning rod, it really hampers the action that you can put on the bait. As far as it's just a little too heavy, it's a little too long. You can't get that quick snap like you can with a shorter rod. So that is definitely the way to go. And also, guys, when you're spinning reel, make sure you have a large diameter 3000 series spool on there, because it's going to allow you to make longer casts with that. So equipment is really, really important. And the next thing with that, as far as if you're going to be better than anybody else, you have to understand, when you're talking about terms of putting action on the lure, you have to figure out that particular day the mood and the personality that the fish want. You can't ever go out there and think, well, I'm going to fish a jerkbait, I'm going to go jerk, jerk, pause, jerk, jerk, pause, or any type of retrieve. You have to listen to the fish that particular day in terms of their aggressiveness or their lack of aggressiveness. Now, what that plays into, it's not necessarily the water temperature so much, but it's really more about the water clarity. In the wintertime, a lot of people think when that water is really cold, like down in the 40s, that you have to work your jerkbait really, really slow. That's not true most of the time. And this is one of the things that's going to help you be better than anyone else. I have found in my own fishing, the cleaner the water, regardless how cold it is, you can work that bait a little bit fast, because it's a sight bait. And bass are not as sluggish in cold water as what people think. I used to think they were really sluggish in cold water, but they're not, guys. I have caught a lot of bass in 45-degree water working a jerkbait at a pretty good clip, if that water visibility is clear. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if that water visibility has some color to it, like you're fishing the water, let's say your water temperature is 47, 48 degrees, which is pretty cold. And then you have like 2 foot of clarity, or 2.5 foot of visibility. That's when you may want to slow it down. Give those fish a chance to really find that bait a little bit more. So basically, sort of restructure your thinking in terms of water clarity over water temperature and how fast you work a jerkbait, and experiment. It's like when you're working, a jerkbait. One of the reasons it's the hardest bait to learn how to fish, which it is you can't just reel it in and catch any fish on it. I mean, unless you're in some pond that's the fish have never seen a bait before, you have to manipulate and you have to put action on that bait to generate that strike. And the type of retrieve that you use in terms of how hard or how soft your jerks are, how long you let it sit, how much you pull it, how much you twitch it in place, you have to sort of experiment to see what the fish want that particular day. Because again, it's a combination of the water clarity, the water temperature, it can be the wind, it can be the species of bass. Largemouth, spotted bass, and smallmouth all have a different preference in terms of the aggressiveness that they like, their lures to be worked at. So you just sort of have to get a feel for that. Another thing, and we've talked about this before, is if you're going to be better than everybody else around you with a jerkbait, guys, you have got to have a big color selection. And again, I'll link my Tackle Warehouse Megabass jerkbait link in the description of this video if you guys want to look through those and get you some good baits and good colors. But the point I want to make here is one of the biggest drawbacks that I see that keep people from catching fish on a jerkbait is they have way too limited of a color selection. I always make it a point to look through the tackle boxes of the people that fish with me when we go jerkbait fishing. And without exception, guys, they do not have enough colors. And it's not, like on crankbait fishing, a lot of people will have a shad pattern and maybe some type of a chartreuse side black back and, maybe crawdad pattern, and they call it good. You can't do that on jerkbait fishing. Jerkbait fishing is a sight-oriented technique. And the colors, they play a huge role in actually getting the fish to commit to that bait, because what happens is, since the bait is a sight-oriented bait, those fish will come up close and study a jerkbait a lot of times in the wintertime. And if you don't have the right coloration of it, as far as, whether it be a flat finish, a metallic finish, a see-through finish, in relationship to like your environmental conditions, they may look at it, but they're not going to bite it. So you really have to have a wide range of colors. And what I would recommend is you got 3 different color palettes in a jerkbait. You got a flat finish, like a matte finish, then the metallic sided ones, and then the ones that are sort of clear or translucent. Try to get, you know, 3 or 4 different colors of each palette, like 3 or 4 different shades of a flat finish, 3 or 4 different shades of a metallic, and a translucent. And that way you can experiment up a little bit, and it's going to definitely help you catch more fish there. Another thing, we could go all day on this. I don't want to keep you guys all day, but 2 other things I'll leave you guys with is the next one is paint red gills on your jerkbait. If you take some red fingernail polish and outline the gill area, the gill plate on a jerkbait, it really helps you out as far as getting the fish to focus on that head of that bait, because a jerkbait is notorious for the fish nipping at the tail of it, but a little bit of that red fingernail polish on the gill plate will get those fish farther up on the head of that bait, and you'll hook them a lot better. And finally, you know, we still got a bunch of stuff I could talk about, but finally, one thing that's going to help you catch more fish than anyone else is downsize your hooks. The hooks that come on the megabass jerkbaits are the right size of hooks, but a lot of people, what happens is when they straighten out or they get dull or something, people upgrade them and they put bigger hooks on it. You don't want to do that, guys. You always want to go smaller on your jerkbait hooks. You get better penetration out of a smaller hook, and you get better action on the bait. If you upgrade your jerkbait hook size, you're going to take away the action of the bait, and you're also going to make it harder to hook those fish. It's not the larger diameter of hook that helps you hook the fish on a jerkbait. It's the penetration from the small diameter. So go small. Most of the time, like on my megabass Vision 110s, I'll put like a number 5 on the back. I use Gamakatsu G Finesse trebles exclusively on my replacement hooks. I'll put a 5 on the front, and then usually a 6 in the middle, and maybe another 5 up front, or sometimes another 6 up front. I want to go small with the things. Sometimes I'll use 3 number 6s. Just depends on the model of jerkbait that I'm using. But anyway, that's just a few tips, guys. If you utilize those, what I'm talking about, go to the spinning outfit, go to lighter line, get those colors I'm talking about, work with your cadence and your retrieves, you know, go down to small hooks. I can promise you guys, you're going to catch more fish than about anybody around you. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later.